Ladies and gentlemen, this emergency session is called to order. Admiral Bishop, you have the floor.
For 200 years, we have battled the Vanduul. We have caught these attacks, raids, or skirmishes or incursions. But I am here to tell you that we are at war. Tiber, Orion, Caliban, Virgil, once human systems all but abandoned in the face of the enemy. The Vanduul are at our gates, weapons bared while we hide and cower, retreating as they burn and decimate everything around us. We cannot let the tragedy of Vega happen again. We cannot give the Vanduul any more ground. To defend this empire, we must attack. And we have to be committed to that attack, whatever the cost may be. We have to rebuild our fleet. We have to use the power of human innovation to reclaim these so-called red systems and strike back at the enemy. This will not be an easy fight. It will cost us in resources, in credits, in lives. Well, some of you may be asking why undertake such a thing, and I can tell you in one word. Victory! For if there's one thing the Vanduul has taught us, it's that without victory, there can be no survival!
And welcome back to the Soul Citizens. I am GriffinGamingRPG and I'm not on camera. I don't know what's going on. Where'd my camera go? I was here a few minutes ago. Maybe there's something blocking me. That's weird. Why am I not on camera? Well, we're gonna have to.
You're just too much for the stream.
Is that what it is? Maybe it's just.
Yeah.
I'm just overpowering this thing. I don't know. My camera's lit up, but I'm not on. So I'm going to still talk while I try and figure out what in the world is going on with my camera, gang. But
blame Whammer.
Is that what? It's Whammer's fault.
Whammer wants my screen time.
It's Whammer's fault. I don't know why my camera did that. That is so weird. Let's see if I switch back to USB if it comes on. It may or may not come on. Anyway, welcome everybody back to the Soul Citizens. Rakazox, thank you so much for that resub right off to kick us off the right way this week. Thank you guys so much. We are in the month of May, our first show for this month, and we are excited to be back. Let me introduce my co-host today. Today we've got the famous fastcart FC. FC, how are you?
I'm alright.
Yeah.
At least I'm on camera. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
And I just gotta say, DK stole part of my joke. I was gonna say they will never take away our freedom on our Independence Day.
Yeah.
At the end of that video.
Absolutely. And also with us today, back again. Actually, we're back to back 2 weeks in a row, right, guys? Jade Starwatchr.
Yeah, same crew.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something, but I started not to.
Yeah, we are back with the same crew. Jade, how are you?
I am doing fine.
Good. Are
Good
you
to be here.
are you ready for the Vanduul discussion this week?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
as soon as I knew we were doing this, I wanted to be on this show. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna try and figure out what's wrong with my camera, and you guys don't
Okay.
have to
I had
see
nothing
me.
better to do, so I'm here.
Yeah. You're right. Listen, we are talking about this week the Vanduul gang, and we've been hearing about the Vanduul forever, but at the same time, there's the information for the Vanduul when it comes to Star Citizen and accessing that information is all over the place, right, Jade? I mean, you gotta look all over for this stuff, right?
All over, like, and you have to look back years, like all the way back to 2013.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. And so we have done all the work. Well, not all of the work. We've done some of the work for you guys today.
Oh, no. Let me put this straight. Griffin and Jade have done all of the work. I was just sit back here and just enjoying the fruits of their labor.
Well, we've done a little bit of work. Let's just say that. And we're going to try to talk to you all about the Vanduul in maybe a way that you've never heard before. Now, I will say this. There are plenty of great pieces out there done with lore. One of our good friends, Paul Shelley, who's one of our lore masters in the community, has done an outstanding job presenting information about the Vanduul, about systems and everything. So I would also highly recommend. Wow. I'm not sure who said that. Who said that one? Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, you may want to look into did I pop in? I popped in for a second.
You popped in.
All right,
Yeah,
just for a
there you go.
second.
There you
All
go.
right,
We
I'm
see you.
here now. I'm here, gang. You have to forgive me because I have to do all my green screen work and stuff, but I'm still going to talk to you guys. Paul and several other people have some really, really great lore stuff out there. So when you guys get a chance, take a look at their videos. And as Jade said, you really do have to go back years because the Vanduul we've just been getting bits and pieces about them. Some of the information may be dated, but there's also a lot of information about the Vanduul that we're seeing that is probably still very relevant even today. And so we're going to try to present that information to you guys. And then if you have questions, use the little ellipse down next to the chat box. It looks like a little small, what's that thing called? Lunar eclipse. If you click on that, you can put in questions or any thoughts you have. And we're going to try and tackle this subject with you guys. So first, we're going to watch a video that I found online. And this is kind of like a little starter for us. This video is called Star Citizen Lore First Contact by James Johnson. I want to give credit to James Johnson for this, and you guys, we'll put the link in for you as well. You can go back and take a look at this. But he does a little background piece on the Vanduul to kind of kick off this conversation, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit about it ourselves. So let's let you guys watch that for a little bit. Is that the right thing? Probably not. Could be. Not really. This is not my day-to-day. Studio 1. Oh, let me go to Studio 2. That might be why. All right, let's see if this works this time. It didn't work. Okay. Give me 1 second, gang. We're having technical issues here today.
I can tell a bad joke while we were. Oh, there it goes.
No, that's not it either. Wow, where's our video? I am so sorry, folks. Let me see if I can find where our video is. Boom, 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 boom. All right, I'm just going to throw it up on the screen. I know this isn't our normal high production value, but I'm going to just throw this video up on the screen and let you guys watch it, and then we'll come back to it. Let's see, where is it at? There it is right there. All right, here we go.
Project Farstar, the exploration and colonization program created in 2547, designed to establish the most distant human colony in history, resulting in the discovery of Tiba, Vega, and Virgil, with the latter two subsequently colonized. The Orion system was the farthest human world discovered under Project Farstar in 2650. It had one sole habitable planet, Orion 3, renamed Armitage by the explorers. Despite there being nothing noteworthy about this planet, Armitage was colonised in the 2660s and quickly became a bustling hub of activity. All was relatively peaceful. That was until 2681. Unbeknown to the UEE, the Banu and Xi'an had suffered a number of raids to their systems, and now, it appeared, it was our turn. On August 9th, the Dell Township on Armitage was the scene of a violent attack. 638 people killed, almost the entire colony. To this day, just one man remains unaccounted for. It was a seemingly senseless and brutal attack that came without any warning. There had been no signs of any other species in the area. What was most puzzling, perhaps, was that valuable items were left behind in the wake of devastation, whilst more worthless items with much lower value had been scavenged by the invaders. The UEE deployed researchers to assess this new threat. They determined that these were the actions of a truly violent race. This was the Vanduul. Research indicated that the Vanduul often revisited past areas that they had identified to be of use to them. It was speculated that this is why Armitage had been targeted. Whilst they had not colonised the planet, in fact, they had only set foot on the place once in the previous century, they still considered Armitage their world. Over time, the UEE learned more about the Vanduul. They were scavengers. Despite their violent introduction to the UEE, they weren't looking for war, nor did they want permanent land. They are driven by the search for resources over kill tallies. They behave like classic hunter-gatherers with a very distinct style. Eliminate the threat, raid the occupied planet, and once the resources have dried up, move to a new location. This was indicative of a nomadic species, one with no desire to find a place to call home. This sentient, nomadic living species of bipedal aliens form hordes to crew their ships. Each horde has its own set of rules, customs, and laws, overseen by the chieftain. There is little communication between the different clans of the Vanduul race, but there is one thing they have in common. A strange tradition that gives some insight into the inner workings of the Vanduul. Once a child reaches adulthood, they are banished from their family. They will receive no money, housing, or support of any kind, except one thing: a knife. The knife is fashioned by the young Vanduul's parents, and as the only item in their possession, it is treasured for the rest of their lives. In fact, the symbolic nature of the knife can be seen across most of Vanduul society. Knife imagery appears throughout their media. Elaborate stained glass images of knives have been discovered, and even Vanduul ships are directly inspired by the shapes of their daggers. The Vanduul see every achievement they make in adulthood as the result of having the knife at the start of their journey. Perhaps this explains why they are so comfortable with the use of violence and destruction to survive. It certainly helps place emphasis of Vanduul culture on self-reliance over religion. The admiration of a specific person and their achievements is far more likely than the worship of a higher or more spiritual power. DNA analysis of captured hordes show that they have a wide range of genetic diversity within each group. So, despite their lack of cohesion as a species, There is some interaction between hordes. Intriguingly, the analysis also shows that hordes consist solely of males. This means that there must be somewhere in the verse the Vanduul call home. Somewhere where their female and young are safely based. Despite their somewhat barbaric nature, the Vanduul should not be underestimated or seen as an unintelligent species. They learn and adapt, taking knowledge from each planet they raid and every species they encounter. They don't create their technology, they take it from other races and do what they want with it for their own desires. In battle, they have shown a confidence not seen before in an alien species. Their ability to strategize was gravely underestimated, as they quickly learnt to attack high-value buildings such as medical facilities and comm stations first, to minimize the chance of resistance. It's easy to think that only humanity would be able to draft such a complex battle plan, and even more surprising that it came from a species more likely to shoot first and ignore the consequences. The Vanduul are capable of communicating verbally as well as visually through hand gestures and changing the colour of their bodies according to their mood. Whilst clearly capable of communicating, none of the individual hordes have offered anything but hostility to the UEE. That being said, it is possible for a singular human to establish trade with the Vanduul, but let this be at your own risk. Transactions should be purely business, and we must be mindful that there is, as of yet, no commonly accepted guidelines or protection when engaging in Vanduul trade. Whilst the Vanduul are hostile towards the UEE, some hordes will trade with Banu planet states, and there are some very fragile trading relations with the Xi'an. Relations with the Vanduul haven't improved since that first brutal contact. In just 6 months since the first attack, outposts throughout the Orion system had been raided 15 times, and all attempts at peaceful contact proved unsuccessful. They decimated UEE fleets across the Orion system with antimatter bombs, causing the UEE to abandon the system. This is exactly what the Vanduul wanted. They were now able to harvest the resources of the planet within, with no interference. They did the same to the Virgil system, and after a notable absence at the opening of the Ark in 2806, the Caliban system received the same devastating treatment in 2871. They had so far refused all attempts to stop the violence and open diplomatic relations. For over 250 years, millions of soldiers and civilians fell to the forces of the Vanduul. 3 UEE-controlled systems have been lost to the Vanduul, and the attacks were growing in frequency. They were now a real and impending threat to the UEE. Then there was silence. It didn't last. Attacks resumed in 2945, and this time the UEE said no more. The Senate formally declared interspecies war on the Vanduul. From now on, as far as the UEE are concerned, the Vanduul's only desire is the destruction of humanity. This was the start of the Vanduul War. The first public known offensive of the UEE in the Vanduul War was Operation Mandrake in March 2946. It ended with the occupation of the Oberon system by UEE forces. It was the first time in our history that major victory had been scored against a medium-sized Vanduul clan. Perhaps we could have hope. Perhaps now the tide was beginning to turn. If there's one thing the Vanduul have taught us, it's that without victory, there can be no survival.
So without victory, there can be no survival. FC, had you seen that video before?
No, I have not, but it's almost like his voice is so soothing. It was almost like ASMR.
Did you learn something?
Yeah, I'm gonna do one better than Galky. The Vanduul reminds me of one of my ex-girlfriends. No, this whole show is pretty informative. I'm not supposed to give away too much information, but it's not so much that I learned something, but I was reminded of stuff, because the early stuff is, like 2013, 2014, so it's coming back to me.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Jade, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely learned something from this, and James Johnson does a great job. He does as good a job as Paul. He's lesser known, but he does really good background lore, turning it into almost like a history lesson. In fact, we on the People's Radio use his stuff for our Time Probe history public affairs show. So thanks, James, for letting us do that. And as far as the Vanduul, like, I learned things that I didn't know as far as what happened with when the UE Marines boarded the X-12, and basically most of what we learned about the Vanduul has been from stuff we've recovered, ships we've recovered or destroyed, and sort of looked into. So there's a lot that that we can glean from that. I mean, we'll probably get into it more when we start talking about like their social structure and the things that they hold of value. I think one of the things, misconceptions in the Star Citizen community, is that the Vanduul are just, these monsters. They're bloodthirsty. All they care about is destruction. But they're definitely not occupiers. They don't want to occupy the worlds. They plunder. They're more like
locusts,
Yeah, exactly. and that can, that can bring up something. I mean, they left behind objects of value, but took the resources and lower value items. So I would say that premise at the end of the video may be wrong. There may be a way to have victory without actually having to defeat them in battle, because any species that needs resources, that opens up a possibility of trade, and we do know the Banu trade with them, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah, good point. I want to give a shout out to an old friend out there. Stoutman is there tonight with us. Stoutman, it's good to see you, and thank you for the sub as well. Marzipan, thank you for the sub as well. And is it BGDNBO? Thank you for the follow. We appreciate that. And thanks for joining us tonight. Let's go ahead and jump into this, because we've got a lot of material to cover, some of which we heard in the video, but we're going to go over just to give you guys a little bit more depth here. The Vanduul, pronounced Vanduul, are a race in Star Citizen. They're highly aggressive and appear to travel the galaxy in hordes, raiding colonies to survive. And I'm always kind of interested about that statement, to survive. That's something I'm kind of wondering about. Standard Dev, thank you for the resub. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. The Vanduul are the fourth alien race discovered by the UEE, and first being the Banu. And in 2952, the Vanduul are at war with the humans. One of the things that we heard about in fastcart years ago, some people who weren't around back in the day when this thing called Operation Pitchfork came out, right? Why don't you talk a little bit about that, and maybe you tie in what you know about Operation Pitchfork from back in the day?
From what I know for Operation Pitchfork, I don't know when it started or who organized it, but it's set up that at the last day of beta, but just before Star Citizen launch, going live and they flip the switch and everything, the player base is supposed to go out to a Vanduul base to try to take back Vega, or to try to fight the Vanduul, basically.
Yeah.
And some people, put it this way: we expect it to become part of lore because CIG is going to record the event and maybe make references to it in the game after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm half expecting, like, if CID wants us to win somehow, maybe they could set up like a dynamic mission and stuff like that, or if they don't want us to win, they could just stack the odds against us, and wipe us out. But I think it'll be a good battle.
Yeah.
So yeah, Operation Pitchfork.
Yeah. Jade, do you remember the skin that they put out for the Aurora? The Operation Pitchfork skin?
The Operation Pitchfork skin? Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, do you think that kind of validates what fastcart saying that they actually may make it an official event since they did put a skin out with that? Because that was a community idea that got translated into the actual development.
Yeah, absolutely. As fastcart corrected me one time when I said the Daymar Rally was the first event they did something like that in game with. This was Operation Pitchfork was the first event where they recognized it in game with that skin. So I assume it's going to be, yet another community created thing that CIG then turns into in-game content.
Well, we've got a couple of game vets out there, Unique and Stout Man. Both of them say they have that skin. Some of you guys may have never seen it, but there is a skin out there that has the little logo on it with a pitchfork, and it's Operation Pitchfork. So,
did they update it?
I don't know.
There was controversy because they did change the
they
design.
changed the design? Oh, really?
Yeah, because there was a white supremacist group that was using the exact same design, so they had to change it.
Might want to change that a little bit.
You might want to wait till Pitchfork is here before you put out a skin for a ship, CIG. Just saying.
Oh, my God. That's hilarious. Oh, my God.
Can I point out the one thing? A counterpoint. There's also, I forget the other operation, but there's a counter operation that's going to take the side of the Vanduul against Operation Pitchfork. So there's going to be players fighting against player in Operation Pitchfork. I forget that it's another tool, but yeah.
Now that would be cool if people do that and they're doing it in Vanduul ships, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I don't know.
When I was in a pirate org, we were going to be part of that counter operation, but we weren't going to fight people. We were just going to take their stuff. Right? While they were away fighting the Vanduul, we just come in and take their stuff.
Wow.
But anyway, I don't do that anymore.
So you know. You're reformed. Yeah. We know you're reformed.
But just giving you some intel for years later when we finally get to this.
Yeah, very cool. We'll keep our eyes open. Thrakazak, thank you for that gift sub to BSL Black Sky Legion, our good friend Kai out there. Let's do some comparisons here. We've got an animation here that's running. This is probably one of the more recent variants that we've seen. There's been a lot. If you notice when that video was on a few minutes ago, they showed like an early concept drawing of the Vanduul. And CIG has put out a variety of these images, but this is one of the ones that I like a lot. I just love it because of the lighting. Gives you an idea of the way they look. We do have another image here that I can show that shows the comparative size of Vanduul. Vanduul are supposed to be in excess of 7 feet in height. They also are able to leap great lengths, and obviously there's a great amount of strength that they have. And for those of you who just say, oh yeah, I'm going to go out and kill Vanduul, well, take a look at that picture on the left, and you may want to reassess your feelings about that. But they are... they're pretty big. They're pretty big.
I got something to say about this.
Yeah.
There's the behind the scenes video with Gillian Anderson when for Squadron 42, and one of the behind the scenes has Chris Roberts handing Gillian Anderson like a pop gun and pointing her to a empty space where Vanduul is supposed to be. But he had an image of the Vanduul on some kind of tablet or monitor or something like that. So Gillian Anderson was looking at it, and she said, "This is supposed to work on that."
Yep.
So yeah, even she was intimidated by the size of a Vanduul.
Yeah. Galki says, "If it bleeds, we can kill it." Hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Yeah.
We will see.
We don't know how they bleed though.
Yeah,
so.
well, look at Gold Mop. They're big, but are they bulletproof? Okay, all the heroes are in chat today. We'll see what happens. Okay, well, listen, we're going ahead and jump into this a little bit more. Let's talk about them. We're going to break this down to different categories, guys. We've got society, meritocracy, religion. We're going to talk about all these different topics, so just kind of bear with us. So the first one we're going to cover is about society with them. Okay, the Vanduul family structure is also a very distinct from humanity. There's one tradition that exists throughout all of the Vanduul. When we heard this a few minutes ago, once a child reaches adulthood, usually around the human equivalency of 13 to 14, they are banished from their family. And before they go, the parents will fashion a knife for their child. Okay, I think there's more to this if I can find it. Where's my more to it? Oh, okay. I guess I got to finish reading it here. For their child, the knife will be the child's only possession as he or she sets out into adulthood. They will receive no money, housing or support of any kind from their former family. Everything that the newly recognized adult achieves starts with the knife and grows from there. Now, you know what I found interesting about this, Jade and fastcart, is this is a very similar pattern to what happens with Banu, where when Banu, you get to a certain point and you leave your family and you end up going into a what's the word? Jade, help me with the word. A Suli, right? A Suli. There seems to be a little bit more friendlier than this. But here we've got something very similar that goes on with the Vanduul. I know, Jade, later on you're going to talk about some parallels that we see that happen between the Vanduul and the Banu and the Vanduul. We'll talk about that. Consequently, it is believed that these knives are treasured possessions that Vanduul keep for the rest of their lives. While it is possible to legitimately gain one through personal combat, if the Vanduul discover that someone has obtained a knife through theft or sale, they are known to retrieve these items through violence. Jade, I was bounced this one at you. I was almost going to say something. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I don't want to offend anybody.
Okay.
It sounds like what they're inferring is that if you win this thing through battle, then you're considered legit. Mm-hmm. But if you steal it or you buy it off the black market and the Vanduul find out, you're in trouble. Does that sound about what they're trying to say, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. So, if you don't want trouble with the Vanduul, don't steal their knives. It's the most prized possession they have. So it's probably more prized than their ships.
Yeah. Gold Mob, I was thinking about that, like the dark saber thing, right? You got to win it in combat, right? If you get it any other way, not good, right? That might be a factor with it. Mordas, thank you for that follow. And Aram Solari, thank you for the resub. Thank you for the 3 months. We appreciate that. Let's see. Anybody else got anything about society before we jump down? Because I know we got some deeper things, but some of this was covered in the video.
Yeah, somebody brought up in chat. We don't actually know anything about there being female Vanduul.
Mm-hmm.
They're not referred to as far as I saw digging in the lore.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't mean that there aren't any.
Right, they just say family and that's it, right?
Yeah, it's just family. Mm-hmm. And we don't know. I mean, we got our region technology, right, recovered from them. So we don't know. Maybe they just cloned themselves. And maybe they don't actually have more than one gender.
Right, they could be asexual.
Maybe they have three. We have no idea what their social structure is as far as that goes. Because again, we only have what we recovered from those ships. Yeah. And all that was on the ships were males. So,
If you see something more, Dawes, I know you said the lore says it. We tried to find it. Not saying that it's not there. I didn't see it. So if you've got something, please send us a link because we're trying to learn as much as we can ahead of time. Because, there are some interesting things. One of the things we didn't put in here, and I couldn't find it, Jade, was the whole conversation about if they're wearing armor versus if they're not wearing armor. I couldn't find, I don't know where I saw it. I remember seeing it a long time ago. But there's so much, as we mentioned to you guys earlier, there's so much information, but it's spread out over a 9-year period. From everything and from
some of it could be like 10 for the chairman, which is hard to dig through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt to Morados that there are female Vanduul, and as far as the whole thing with the armor, there's also the thing with the ships, if you see a Vanduul flying a glaive, they're kind of like a novice pilot. If they're flying a scythe, you run because
watch out. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. We'll talk about that when we get to the weapons and combat stuff. Let's jump to the next one here on Meritocracy. There is little to no communication between the different roaming clans. Each fleet operates as its own society with its own independent set of rules, laws, and customs as decreed by that clan's chieftain. As such, it is probably impossible to make peace or establish diplomatic relations with the Vanduul as a whole, since there is no cohesive civilization. fastcart, let me throw this at you. What type of difficulties do you see? Because Jade was saying maybe there is some way to have some type of, because the way James read it when he did his piece, he talked about if you're going to deal with them on a business level only, which kind of inferred the fact that don't try to do it on a relationship level, because that's not going to, there's going to be no merit in that. They're not going to say, hey, that fastcart's a nice guy, he tells funny jokes, right? You know what I mean? It's right. Like, but they may say, hey, that guy fastcart, whenever he shows up with his merchantman, he's got something on there that we want, right? But you know, how does
hopefully they pay for it?
Well, my question becomes, let's say you use that merchantman and you do try to do that type of level of trade. What does that say for you? Because each one of these clans could be different, is what they're saying. You know, their attitudes could be, you know.
Yeah, I would have to make sure that I recognize the marking or some kind of telltale sign that I'm in contact with the correct clan and not some other clan that I haven't had dealing with or some such. Because, I mean, I'm not trying to be racist or anything, but all Vanduuls look alike to me, so I can't really tell.
Jade, do you think that the CIG will build something in for reputation? But, you know, like you said, we can't do it for all of them, right? They're saying that there's no way we can build that thing with all so that the word can go out that says, hey, listen, you guys, don't mess with Jade Starwatchr, because every clan's going to be different. But do you think that they would maybe do something with reputation, that maybe certain clans that operate in certain areas, if you happen to do well by them? Because they infer that they don't know of anybody who's done it, but it could be done. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do believe CIG is going to do that. You know, there's a lot of reason for that too. In the lore piece they did, where they talked about the UE Navy and Marines boarding the X-12, the Vanduul carrier ship. One of the things that a lot of people may not know is that, you know, the Vanduul aren't just these like bloodthirsty warriors. When they went into the rooms, they saw that most of them were utilitarian, but they had one that was colored with murals with pink blossom trees, and it seemed to be a Vanduul rec room with a gym and the swimming area. So that right there gives us some kind of commonality, and who knows, maybe you pull up in your 890 jump, Griff. And you know
nope. Yeah, wrong one. The one time you cannot use me in an 890 jump, Jade. Right now, this is it.
No, wait. Why you gotta volunteer my merchantman, but you won't show up in your 890?
No,
what's up with that?
Well, because no, I'm just teasing, Jade. Go ahead.
I mean, they might want to swim in that pool. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and I have to clean that pool afterward. But okay, go ahead. I'll follow you. I'll go along with you. Yeah, if I show up in my 890, yeah.
So yes, I mean, you know, they have some appreciation obviously for art because they have murals that tells you something culturally about them that we have in common. So like wars, you know, can be settled sometimes through common interests. And I think that because the way they're nomadic and because they're very Banu-like, where is, you know, they're kind of decentralized, you might be able potentially to build reputation with one group of Vanduul, right? But the whole species might still be at war with humanity, right?
Yeah, like you said, based on needs, right? Maybe that's
exactly
the truth. If you're able to provide something to that particular group and build reputation, you know, in some form, it'll be interesting to see, right? Because I know they've kind of painted the Vanduul, like you said, in this very ominous group, you know, blah 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 blah, but whether there can be any form of interaction will be interesting to see, and who's going to be the first person to risk it and maybe be successful, right?
Not it.
Not you? Okay. All right. Fair enough. Okay. Let's go on to the next category, which is religion. Vanduul religion appears to be structured around an emphasis on self-reliance. It is theorized that Vanduul youth are educated in the lives of exemplary Vanduul of the past, specifically the choices they made and how they overcame their environment and distinguished themselves. So instead of this idea about a deity or someone that they follow, they look upon their own history and people, maybe, I guess you could say that they idolize, and they built an attitude of self-reliance that, you know, because here, and this gives you that idea of why they have these clans that also don't seem to be dependent upon each other, right? They've got a chieftain, they evidently look up to that person, and I guess that's all they need. Jade, you got any thoughts on that?
Yes, when they went in that ship, there was something that they dubbed the chapel, and it was like full of knives. Yep. So the closest thing the Vanduul have to religion appears to be, you know, that recognition of, you know, accomplishment through wielding violence.
Yeah. And the knife defines something else for them. Like you said, it's much, you know, it's this token that comes from the parents, right? That's this saying, this is how you're going to begin your life, right? You're going into adulthood. And then that knife seems to permeate everything, you know, whether it's their art. The knife is something that, like you said, is a precious possession that's held. Their ships reflected their war, combat, and they said maybe that's why their attitude is the way it is toward violence. But it does recognize maybe a sacredness for them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That they I don't say not deify it, but it represents their whole way of life. You know, beyond it just being a weapon.
A xenoarchaeological type, you know, perspective on this, or a xenobiologist perspective. You know, a lot of what we as humans look at and revere is the beginning of the use of tools and the invention of using fire.
Yeah,
and it could be that the Vanduul, they have the same thing, but maybe turned up to like 11 with the knife, right? Being the thing that defines what it means to be a Vanduul, because that's what was their first real technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's interesting that you would say it that way. I won't even go down that road. But yeah, the fact that we see it, and I want to talk about when we get to their ships, because I think that there's a lot of people who play Star Citizen that don't know something about even their ships in relation to this conversation we're having right now. So we'll touch on that when we get to it. Let's go on to the clans, because we keep talking about these clans and these groups. Vanduul clans are groups of Vanduul who have banded together to form a single mutually beneficial unit. Although observers have not yet fully defined the leadership structure, it is believed that clans operate in a martial meritocracy that shares some similarities with a military unit. The primary goal for most clans encountered in human-settled space seems to be a collection of resources through raids on settlements and other clans. Uncommonly, powerful clans may possess a capital class vessel, such as a UEE designated, what we call the kingship. What I was, and I am going to say it now because they kind of reference it here, and Jade, you kind of referenced it. What was interesting is that they said that when they did their raid on the colony, the stuff that we thought was valuable, they didn't care about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was the stuff that we almost considered worthless. And it's a curiosity to wonder what were those items, that they took.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
Yeah, because evidently it wasn't technology. Whatever it was that that humans considered valuable. It says that they really didn't take that stuff. It's some other stuff they took. Now, I don't know if that was the garbage or what, but I'm really curious. I think they put that out there for us to try to figure it out. You know what I mean? So that we really don't know when fastcart wants to go trade. Maybe it's not that shiny bauble that he's got, but maybe it's something that we wouldn't think very much about that has value. What were you going to say, fastcart?
I have an idea. It's cutlery, steak knives.
They cleaned the kitchen. They cleaned the kitchen out, right? They took all the utensils. Yeah. Anything that was pointy. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But this clans idea is really interesting to me. Any one of you guys got anything in relation to that? No? Wow.
Not with the clan. Not really.
Not with clans. Okay.
The knife thing is interesting. It's like maybe you're not a real Vanduul if you don't have a knife.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Jade, let me ask you this. They said that. Notice what they said. They didn't say if you were a clan you might have a driller, right? They said you might have a kingship.
Yes.
That's no joke, right? I mean, a kingship of all the ships that you could possibly have. I mean, are they saying that in order to get a kingship, that's how it's, in other words, you're all one big group of folks that are operating that particular ship?
Yes. And I think it's because, obviously, because it is a meritocracy, it's probably, battle hardened warriors that get those kingships, people who are the like equivalent of, admirals and Earth. They get to now possess the kingship, and their clan, now are operating it, right? But one of the interesting things, I don't know I guess we will get to the ships, but one of the interesting things that I noted was we know almost nothing about Vanduul industry ships, right? We do know that they have a ship that deploys a ground vehicle,
right?
That basically just reaps everything. It's a harvester. It's a harvester carrier. Yeah. So it's interesting that some of these probably operate those. Some of these clans that aren't necessarily the best warriors may, be really good at scavenging. So they'll have probably sort of like the way the Banu have Sulis that are dedicated to different things. There's another, part of that crossover.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, very cool. All right, let's go on. I think that there's more to culture, right? I didn't read everything in culture, did I?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Here's some more culture. Sorry, guys. Am I missing something here? I'm just
no. You just finished Vanduul clans. This is the next section.
Oh, I did. Oh yeah, that's right. That was okay. Clans. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Now we're in culture. My apologies. Again, little is known about Vanduul culture other than that they disperse into different hordes. When the captured Vanduul carrier ship designated X-12 was studied, DNA analysis uncovered a wide range of genetic diversity, implying social interaction beyond the single horde. Interesting. Also notable, all bodies studied from the X-12 are male, further suggesting that there must be some central convergence of Vanduul groups where mating and other cooperative activities take place. Let me see which one. I'll switch to this next one. Knife imagery appears throughout their media, with printed images of knives being common on the walls of personal quarters. Their chapels featured elaborate stained glass images of knives. This blade-focused imagery seems to express itself in their starship designs. Every Vanduul found on an X-12 was also found clutching a blade. These blades are believed to have been crafted by their owners, as the owners' musculature perfectly matched the impurities in their blades, although all blade compositions suggest a single point of origin. Okay, so here again, culture, the knives that are continually shown, whether it's painted on the walls in their rooms. Jade, you mentioned about it being in the chapel. The blades that even they died with in their hands this is kind of permeates all of their thing. This whole idea of this blade, it goes beyond it just being a weapon, but it is symbolic of who they are as a race. Okay.
It kind of makes you wonder, because one of their other weapons, and I think we've seen it in what they've showed us from Squadron 42, is the plasma lance.
Yes.
Right? And so I wonder how does that figure in? Like, do they consider it a weaker weapon? Like, would you not be as revered if you killed somebody with a plasma lance versus your blade?
I'm thinking about it, not to be funny, but I'm almost picturing it similar to when you would think about in Star Trek with the Klingons, right?
Yes.
Because there's that, when you have that battle with the bat'leth, that's a whole different level of fighting for them. You know what I mean? Even though they carry sidearm pistols and laser and phasers and stuff and knives, but when they pull out either their Klingon knife or that bat'leth, that is a different level of honor for them fighting. Which in a way would kind of carry, because think about what happens if you've got one of their knives from them. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you killed them and take their knife, like we were talking about with Star Wars, if you took the doggone dark saber, it has some significance. So, but to your point, and we're going to look at some video where we're going to see that lance in action. In fact, we've got some footage of it, which is, I couldn't believe it. I don't know how I didn't remember this footage, but I was like, oh, they actually have animation with them using it. So we're going to show that in a little bit. Yeah. FC,
I hope CIG does go that approach, like the Klingon approach.
Oh yeah, it would be cool. FC, were you going to say something?
No, I was just reminded of behind the scenes, another Squadron 42 behind the scenes where they had Andy Serkis and another actor portraying the Vanduul, and he had this spear and operating it like a key to a ship or maybe a kinship. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there could be something significant to it, but not necessarily like the end all be all like a knife would have.
Yeah, in fact, that's what I was going to say. I think it almost is like that lance seems like a multi-use tool, because they do use it as a stabbing item, but they also use it, as you mentioned, Jade, they use it as a weapon that fires an energy bolt from it as well. Yep. I can imagine how many people are going to want to get their hands on one of those, by the way, because I know that's people are going to really want to get that. They really want to get their hands on that.
Give me that and a Xeon missile launcher.
Written all over it.
Okay.
Coming to a loot box near you.
Near you, huh? Okay. All right. Let's talk about First Contact. We heard a little bit about that at the beginning. On August 9th, 2681. I would love for them to put something on August 9th for us in the game, but that would be kind of cool. A Vanduul raiding party invaded Armitage on Orion 3, destroying the human settlement of Dell Township. All 638 people were killed, save one. United Empire of Earth authorities initially believed that the outlaws were responsible for the attack. It wasn't until 15th of September 2681 that the UEE military encountered their first Vanduul clan. Because the Vanduuls did not operate under a unified government, the UEE was both unable to directly retaliate or seek to establish diplomatic relations. Relations between the UEE and the Vanduul remain hostile. So we heard this earlier. This was our first contact because, again, clans are not connected to each other. One's not responsible for the other one. There is no quote unquote government. And so the UEE really didn't know who to go after, who to charge for what took place. All they knew was who did it. And this began this whole process of us having to have this conflict with the Vanduul. Jade, any thoughts on this with the raid? Mm-hmm.
Because I want to go back to before this raid even happened. And I think the roots of this conflict were because of Project Farstar. Project Farstar was to get the furthest colonies from Earth. It was basically to plant the flag of the very newly formed UEE, which had formed like a year before, as far out as possible. So, did we overexpand? Was this hubris that ended up bringing this upon us?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that this colony was established and it only had about less than 1,000 people. 638 were killed, and they said that was most of the colony. So there was less than 1,000 people there.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't that important to us. The planet wasn't super rich in resources, and it wasn't that important to the Vanduul either, who hadn't visited it in 100 years. So to me, this whole conflict probably could have been avoided, but the Messers wanted to spread their empire as far as possible. Now, I am biased being a Levski resident, so just letting you know.
A little bit of prejudice going on over there. Okay,
there's a little bit of bias
You're throwing some shade at the Messers. Okay, I got you.
And it's important to note that we did actually, when I say we, I'm talking about humanity, not me, but they did try to establish diplomatic relations with the Vanduul through then Imperator Aaron Troy, who was the first Imperator after the Messers fell. When they established the ARC program, which is this big archive of all the information of all the different alien species, past and present, that we know about.
And it's where the ARC map comes from as well, by the way.
That's where the ARC map comes from. So we invited the Xion and the Banu invited the Vanduul to come and be a part of that, to put their information or cultural information in it, and they declined. And I kind of wonder if part of that might be maybe they looked at Aaron Toy and was like, there's a woman that runs this, we don't have women on our starships, so we're not interested. Now, I don't know. That's just, theory crafting on my part. But the point is, we did try to establish diplomatic relations, but it didn't work. They declined, and that's why we're still at war.
Yeah. Let me respond to the Kruthan, please forgive me if I say your name wrong. Salias. No, believe me, we're not saying that the knife is just strictly about violence. We do believe that it represents more a way of life, and that could be obviously for survival. Literally, like fastcart said, it could mean their cutlery that they eat dinner with. We just know that the knife is very symbolic because it's not just the thing that they use in the sense of defense or offense, but it is also the thing that that represents something of great sacred value to them. So you're absolutely right. The knife is way more than that, but it permeates their culture in all aspects. We're gonna say FC.
Like for American, when we turn 16, our big deal is to get a license to drive a car. But it's not so much held in reverence. But to them, that's their version of adulthood. That's when they get turned loose. So yes, it's not just something that they use for violence. It could be the identification for all we know.
What we do,
I know if you've been to LA, they hold their cars in reverence.
Now, what I will say is this, obviously, because of the way they seem to approach everything. We talked about them being more like locusts. They don't come in and try to negotiate first. They don't come in and even give you an alternative. It just seems like, at least it seems like. Now, I want to go back to something that Jade said about the attack on Orion 3. It's not the first time we've seen humans go plant their flag somewhere in science fiction. and just assume that wherever they plant their flag, they were the first ones there.
Yeah.
There have been plenty of movies and TV series where we've seen ourselves take some land only to find out that somebody was there before we were, in a conflict
Not just in
broke
science
out.
fiction. Christopher Columbus.
Well, I wasn't going there, fast card.
And that's where science
I wasn't going there,
science
fast
fiction
card.
references real world
I was trying
things
to
that happen.
infer. I was trying to infer, fast card, but since you put it there, no, true enough. It's not the first time that we have gone somewhere and assumed that this was where we should go, right? And so, to your point, Jade, sometimes that ambition, that going out there and putting our flag down and saying, we're claim this land in the name of blah 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 blah. Sometimes it bites you in the butt, and this is definitely a case where our butts got bit, or the tailpipe, yeah. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that was First Contact, gang. Let's move on here. Let's go on to diplomatic status, which Jade has been touching on a little bit here. The diplomatic status, where do the Vanduul stand with everybody, at least the folks that we know about right now? And I do want to toss in something on this. With humans right now, considered hostile. The relationships, evidently, as Jade mentioned, we've tried to bring them in and have a conversation. They ain't trying to talk. They throwing up the hand and saying, nah, you don't worry about it. They don't want to have a conversation with us. And so far, the interactions have been hostile with humans. With the Banu, some clans will trade with Banu planet states. Now, this is interesting because they have a border to them also. And, we don't know completely what's going on at the Banu. Maybe because the Banu are tall like them, I don't know. But evidently, I think, Jade, you alluded to this earlier, that whatever their resources are that they're in need of, and we know that the Banu are a race of people that provide resources to people to folks. That may be the treaty, the neutral thing for them. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just add there may be some cultural affinity between the two species as well, because
hang on before you go there, because I wanted you to elaborate on that with the Xi'an too. So I'll wait. Okay. Yeah, I'll wait. And then let's talk about the Xi'an. While distance plays a factor there are a lot of unfriendly systems between the Vanduul and Xi'an. Their limited contact has not been particularly fruitful. Some clans have established tentative trading relations, but the majority of Vanduul regard the Xi'an as manipulators and cowards, while the Xi'an view the Vanduul as short-sighted barbaric thugs. Okay, so Jade, go ahead and give us the scoop, because we were talking about these parallels, right? Let's talk about it.
Yes. So the Banu is a lot of people may know, don't talk about their home world, right? Like we suspect their home world is Bacchus too, but they don't really talk about it because they don't really like to reference things in the past. So it's assumed that they've moved on. And so in that way, both species may be sort of nomadic. It also may be, just design aesthetics. If you look at Vanduul ships and Banu ships, they both use a lot of organic, inspired designs. Both species incorporate tech from every species they come into contact with. The Banu like to do it peacefully through trade. The Vanduul just take what they want, and they incorporate it.
Yeah.
And so I think that maybe this relationship may extend beyond just goods and technology to an actual, they may have a sort of cultural affinity where they understand each other better than, say, the Vanduul would understand the Xi'an, because the Xi'an to them, is this very, kind of very centralized, strict culture, right? And so, the Xi'an look at them as just barbaric, scavengers. So. Yeah.
I was thinking they might get along real well with the Ferengi, right? I mean, about acquisition,
if the Ferengi were,
right? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's all about acquisition. Getting whatever it is they want. So they're, like you said, that could be the one that allows one to tolerate the other one a little bit more. Where they may look at anyone else as being less than. You know what I mean? If they're not about those resources and whatever, could be. We never know.
Yes.
FC. This
I'd also like to
go ahead. Go.
Bring up a point Paul Shelley brought up, is that there's the speculation that the Vanduul are actually being chased, and that's what brought them into contact with humanity. That's why they had never been back to that planet for 100 years. They were being pushed back from something else even scarier than the Vanduul. I like that idea.
this episode just gave me an idea. What is scarier than the Vanduul? That's what all the women Vanduul are. They're chasing after the men.
They could be like the Black Widows, right? They're the ones who are more deadly. Yeah, they could be more deadly. You know what? Normally
more deadly than the men.
Yeah, Galky, normally I would not let that go through, but you made me laugh, so I had to put that in. I'm glad you put the asterisk in, so I had to put your comment in there because you got me to chuckle. You got me to chuckle. Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting. What I was going to say about this thing with the diplomatic status in other races, Jade, I don't know if you watched, I know you've been taking in the Star Trek, series,
yes.
And I'm not sure if you've watched Voyager. Have you watched Voyager yet?
Not yet, but
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. There is a race that we find in Voyager that is worse than anybody. They're worse than the Borg. Nobody knows about these jokers. So I'm not going to say anything about them, but I hope that CIG does something like that in Star Citizen, because we keep worrying about the freaking Vanduul.
No.
I'm hoping that there's somebody else out there that even the freaking Vanduul are scared of. I really would love to see that happen. Dark Knight, you remember him, right? Yeah, some of you all who know, Admiral Kusanagi mentions it. You all remember who they were. Yes, Solari. So I hope that they drop that in, because nobody knew about these jokers. They popped up and it was like, oh man, they were bad. They were really, really bad. And there was no good way to fight these jokers. So I'm hoping.
We know it's not the Kurthak, because the Xi'an are fighting the Kurthak.
Right. So I'm talking about somebody we ain't never heard of. Exactly. Somebody we've never heard of. Nobody knows what to do with these jokers. And even when the Vanduul hear about them, they take off. That's what I would love to see happen to this game. So we'll see. Yes. Okay. Let's thank you for that explanation too, because those parallels are something that we should be paying attention to, because we never know how that's going to play out in the game, right?
If you want to understand an alien culture, you got to look at the commonalities that they have with the other ones, right?
There you go. I know you guys may not be able to see this map very good, but this gives you an idea. If we were to chop the verse down, if you look at it a certain way, if you spin it around, it could look differently. But all those red dots that you see on the left are the systems that are controlled by the Vanduul. And I just wanted to kind of let you all see that, because I'm going to come back to language in a second, but I'm just going to read off all these systems they've got. They've got planetary systems, are the Caliban system, Orion, Tiber, Vagabond, Vanguard, Victor. I love the fact that they got all these V's. Vector, Vendetta, Veritas, Vermilion, Vesper, Viking, Virgil, Virgo, Volt, Voodoo, and Vulture. So if you want to go in Vega. And Vega.
I was going to say, that's what I was going to say. The one thing I noticed is not on this list is Vega.
And Vega. So if you're ever flying somewhere and you hear the person who's piloting, you should say, we should stop at that V system. No, we're not. No V's. No V's.
Avoid all the V's.
No V's.
But by the way, about Vega, for you that are into machinima, if you have never seen Letters from Vega, which was done by
early one.
Very good.
Done by some people who now work in CIG's cinematics department. Definitely go back and look at it. It really established like the whole new era of machinima and Star Citizen, and it tells the story from a reporter's standpoint of what happened when the Vanduul attacked.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of systems there, as you guys can see, that are dominated by the Vanduul, which is cool because it gives us plenty of places to go try out things, right? Avoid the Vegemite system. You're right, Danger. We'll avoid that system too. All right. Okay, let's talk about the language here. Vanduul script seems to be both infrequent and crude. There is a unified system of quasi-pictographic writings located in brief segments throughout the ship. Although this exolinguistic team at the University of Moscow, tasked with its study, has made absolutely no progress in discerning it. They have found no correspondence between it and spoken Vanduul language, and it resembles nothing so much as a cross-section between Egyptian hieroglyphics and written Braille. The ship does carry an excessive amount of video-based media, 95% of which is a single Vanduul speaking directly into the camera. Translation work is underway, although it is estimated to take several years. With the available data, we have yet to unearth any kind of Rosetta Stone for the Vanduul script. So in other words, we don't know what their language says. We haven't figured it out. Jade, you got any thoughts on this about this?
The different clans have their own languages or different dialects.
Maybe have different dialects, yeah, but they're saying they haven't even been able to crack the code in how to even break their language down yet. They equate it to like Egyptian hieroglyphics and Braille, but you know, and even when they watch the video, you know, they hear all this, but they aren't able to cipher anything out of it, which is interesting.
Maybe there's a third thing that is involved with their communication that doesn't involve the written part or the auditory part, right?
Like pheromones.
Yes, exactly. Right. And so that might be why we are having trouble translating. So, you know, as far as like in real life, when people who work for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence try to figure out how would we decode an alien language, the first thing they do is they look at, okay, well, you know, obviously if they've got technology, they have math, right? So like, you know, they start at that basic level. So it may be that there's like a third component that conveys what this symbol is. You know, basically, like if you look at the Rosetta Stone, that's what unlocked, you know, Egyptian hieroglyphics, because it showed a commonality between a language we did know and one that we didn't.
Right.
And so we have to learn whatever there's, you know, whatever in between language, let's say, or create an in between language probably to figure out Vanduul, maybe.
Yeah.
I also think that maybe this will be something that, because of Addison and AI, the process will be sped up with machine learning and AI.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Let's go on to, we did systems. Let's talk about the weapons. We talked about this a little bit earlier, and we're going to show you guys a quick video. I think this is a quick video. I hope I got the right thing. Where we talk about weapons, and there was a not Inside Star Citizen, ATV, I think it was, where they showed us the actual lance in use, and I'm hoping when I push this button that this brings it up. Let's see.
And here's a first pass on the sounds produced by the Vanduul Energy Lance, which we saw concept art for a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. That looks like it'll hurt if it hits you.
That's all they showed us, guys.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah,
I forgot all about that.
I told you I'd forgotten about it completely. I honestly completely forgot about it.
I remember.
You remember it? Yeah, I mean, once I saw it, I remembered it, but I completely forgot about it. This energy lance, I think, is going to be something that plenty of players are going to want to get their hands on, just because it represents the fact that they fought with a Vanduul, right? Or maybe they bought one off of fastcart's Banu Merchantman, right?
And not only that, it sounds cool too. That sound effect was great.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an ultra rare item.
I'd love to see what it's like in the sense of damage. You know, is this one of those weapons that you don't want to get hit by, or if you hit it, do you severely bleed? Is it plasma based? What, you know, I'm really curious to see what their technology is going to be. I hope it's not just something as simple as a regular blaster hit, but if you get hit by this thing, you know, you don't want to get hit by their weapon, you know.
I think it's the equivalent of a grenade launcher for the Vanduul. You don't want to get hit with it.
My idea, it could be the equivalent of the Star Wars rookie crossbow blaster. You remember those?
Yeah.
Those things are powerful.
Yeah. If you look on the left side too, by the way, you'll see in the animation one of the Vanduul leaping, and you can see that they can leap a pretty good distance. So fighting them, I'm sure, is no small task. You notice on the left, there's one on the left there in the corner, and if you watch, you'll see him hop over some boxes and land and start running forward. Vanduul, 7 feet tall, gang. So bring your stacked heels if you want to fight him, because it's not going to be a pretty fight. I think.
Titan suit.
Or Titan suit. Or Titan suit. Okay.
Get away from her, you.
Yeah. I'm going to cover this one last category on video, and then we're going to look at some of the ships, and then we're going to bring in some of these things we've been talking about in relation to knives with them. Let's go ahead and cut to that about video tech. Vanduul video technology is interestingly primitive, simple, low resolution 2D screens with video that appears overly green. It is jarring compared to the modern high-resolution holography recordings used by all other known species. Since the general level of Vanduul technology is high, and since they have rated more advanced species for generations, it is speculated that this is intentional and possibly a necessity coming from their uniquely structured eyes. So this is what we were talking about earlier. The fact that they kind of seem like they've got what we would consider, I'm saying what we would consider low tech. What's being implied here is that maybe their physicality limits them in some form, where this is the way they have to be able to visually see something, where for everyone else, holographic images, high resolution images would work out fine because they have access to technology. They've got some pretty elaborate ships, but this particular aspect of it in video tech seems to be what we would consider, low tech. Jade, you pulled this. Was there any thoughts you had on this one?
Yeah, I had a few thoughts, because this points to something that's very different about their physiology compared to the other species as far as the way that their eye developed. It looks to me like they probably see in shorter wavelengths of light. That's why it's overly green, which might mean that they don't really, see red and other longer wavelengths that well. And that may also play a role in the communication. What if part of the language is actually given in the ultraviolet and we just didn't look, right? Like that might be a thing, because their visual range may be different where they can see into the ultraviolet. That's why it's overly green. They can see greens, blues, and violet and ultraviolet perhaps. So it just, speculating based on what little bit of lore we have on their physiology as far as what they can see and perceive, but that may also open up a way to defeat them. And so that's why all the scientists that are studying the Vanduul, they'd be looking really heavily at stuff like this. It may not seem that important. Their stuff is low resolution in 2D, but that might tell you about their depth perception, and that might definitely give you a vulnerability that could be exploited.
I have a question. Most the cockpit that I've seen of Vanduul ships, but they've been worked on by humans. I've always they seem to have red interior or red lights going on. So I wonder what's that about.
Yeah, I think we did that.
Yeah,
maybe because from this, it says that their stuff is overly green.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like when you hear that voice when you turn on an alien ship, we get this like generic, kind of like weird sounding computer voice, but that's not actually the Vanduul and what they speak. And so it may be that the instruments that we have, it's retrofitted or refitted so that we can operate it.
And I was going to also say it's also the distinguishing factor between having a real Vanduul ship, which is another factor too. That if theirs would be illuminated in an overly green, HUD, where when you see a red one, that this isn't this is not a Vanduul ship. It's a replica of a Vanduul ship. But yeah,
or the sites that were captured, and refitted.
So, and to your point, Jade, this once again, these may be those little breadcrumbs that CIG is dropping us to let us know we need to be paying attention to this overly green, because I notice it's in quotes, and the fact that they use the term overly green, not just green, but overly green. Who knows what that may mean when it comes to you being in combat? If you're fighting somewhere, maybe there's some advantage that you get or disadvantage that you get because of their vision. So yeah,
I mean, if you could just you just light off some really bright green flares, and it just like blinds their
them or something.
Vision.
Yeah. Take notes, folks. I hope you're taking notes. Okay, good stuff. Let's talk about the ships, because we've been talking about this imagery that takes place, and some people own or have flown some of the Vanduul ships. Some of you all in chat may own some. Some of you may have flown them before. Some of you may have never flown them just because you're not interested in those ships. But we've seen a transition in the Vanduul ships over the years. We do have them in game right now. The Scythe is in game. The Blade is in game. The Glaive is in game. But a few years ago, CIG, I think it was in 2019 maybe, CIG produced a rework of the Vanduul ships. And we're going to take a look at some of those right now. Some of these ships aren't in the game yet, but some of them are, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. Let's take a quick look at that. Okay. One of the things that, for those of you, and I just saw someone just put in, wow, Big Black Gaming, thank you so much for the 500 bits. We truly appreciate you. Thank you. What was I going to say? Oh, I was talking about that some of you may have certain ships. Someone in chat said that they have a scythe in their hangar and they've never taken it out. I would tell you to take it out and take a look at it, because there's something very unique about the Vanduul ships. And I'm going to leave it up to Fastcart and Jade to tell you what is their tactical use. There's something about those ships that is designed into those ships that makes them extremely formidable.
Yeah.
Fastcart, do you know what it is? He's thinking.
I know what it is.
No. Oh, we can't hear you.
I won't
buddy.
say anything.
We can't hear you.
No, I mean it.
Oh.
No, I think I know what it is. They can ram other ships.
Kind of. Jay, can you elaborate on it a little bit?
They can slice.
They have a sharp. Have a sharp ring.
Those blades have a function. Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And just like, they revere the knife, their ships reflect that in those blades. On the scythe and on the glaive and the blade.
Yeah, guys, listen to what we're telling you. We're not telling you it's designed like a knife. There is a knife in the wing. The scythe actually has a blade that ejects out and sticks out, and their ships are designed that way so that when they fly past you, they slice your ship. So those of you who've been an arena commander, remember back in the day when your ship would fall apart when they got close to you, it's because they actually have a steel hardened blade in the sides of their ship. Now, I don't know whether or not. Yeah, right. Now, again, a lot of times people look at ships like the Glaive because it's got the size 5s on it and they love firing that ship. But I'm going to tell you, I got jacked up by scythes a lot in Arena Commander. A lot.
Yeah.
And so this does carry over into even the design of their ships, just not in the sense of because it looks like a knife, but I mean, they literally built a freaking knife into these ships.
Yeah. The ramming is a valid combat tactic for the Vanduul or anybody operating a Vanduul ship. So, all you PvPers, complaining about ramming, don't complain if it's a scythe or a glaive or blade because it's valid.
It's fair game.
FC. So do you have a Vanduul ship versus a Hammerhead? Who would win?
Which Vanduul ship?
It all depends. It all depends. Yeah, FC, let me ask you a question. What did you think about the rework on this? Because you remember the earlier design. I mean, we still have it, but what did you think about the rework versus when they came up with the new design for the Vanduul ships?
I like the new design. I mean, they like I said, the other work was like what 5 years old, so they needed a rework, and I like the update. It looked up to date to me, and they'll probably do more rework before Squadron 2 is finished.
Okay, Jade, how about you?
I love the rework. I had a glaive for many years when I did a lot of that kind of thing, but and I have it on my buyback because of this rework. I'm looking forward to them releasing Squadron so we can get these reworked Vanduul ships into the game. Yeah,
this design to me is more ominous. The other ones were nice. They had a nice alien feel to them. They were a little bit more colorful, but these ships I like a lot more. you know, I'm always kind of interested. You know, people have always said when CIG puts out ships and there's a distinct change in them, you know, they always ask, hey, will we still be able to get these ships later, you know, in the game? You know, can we have those original versions of ships? And I know that would be a huge pain in the butt for CIG to do, because some people, when they bought this ship, you know, they actually really did like the design. One of the things I didn't like about the original design was the landing gear. They were using that old platform landing gear they used to use on the Freelancers. I don't know if you remember, it was kind of like a long oval that was flat. And I didn't like those designs that they had. They never felt stable to me. Though they also had kind of that winged feel about them. This seems more lizardy, for lack of a better term, to me for some reason. It just kind of seems like it fits them a little bit more, especially after we've seen like ships like the Driller, the King ship. These kind of fit more into the design language that they've done for these ships. So I'm pretty excited about them. Also in this video, as you guys see, we're seeing them use the lance, not just as they were using it as an energy weapon, but we see them actually finishing off their foes with those things. Jade, what do you think? You're gonna dodge the end of that lance?
I won't be anywhere near that lance. You know, unless I'm buying one off somebody, I'm not gonna be anywhere near that lance.
You're gonna buy one?
I mean, hey, if you got one on your merchantman, I'm buying.
Okay, all right.
It's the question of how many you got. I'll buy them.
You'll buy them.
All right.
That's gonna be a high price for those bands, boy. I don't know, but to get those, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, I wonder if the only way you can get them is from one being killed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
Probably.
Yeah.
I do think CIG will set up some type of player. Well, they already talked about like, you know, changing that app where we send each other money to being able to send items. So that'll open up, you know, direct trading between being fastcart for that item.
Yeah.
The thing for me about the ships is that, you know, of all the Vanduul ships we've seen so far, they're all combat ships, or they haven't really have any purpose for me. Like I do like the look, but I don't currently own any of them. I don't intend to get any of them unless to come up with something, you know, industrial. But that's not the Vanduul style.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to get a harvester carrier and harvester.
Right. Well, I mean,
as much as it would be cool.
The Driller is an industrial, so I'll be interested in that one. But yeah, that's too big.
Let me ask you.
The Driller?
Yeah.
It's a carrier, isn't it?
That's a carrier. Yeah.
Yeah. Too big.
Let me ask you guys a question. What are your feelings about these ships flying around in the game? Are they? No. I don't mean when the Vanduul fly them.
Okay.
I mean the fact that players have them. Yeah. What purpose does it serve? Let me ask you this. I'm not saying it doesn't serve a purpose. I'm just asking, what do you feel the purpose is for them being in the game? Because CIG did not necessarily have to release any of these ships. These ships could have just remained for Squadron 42, and maybe you acquired one after that. Why would they allow for Asperia to create these replicas, you know, and then, you know, in quote unquote UEE space, people are flying Vanduul ships around? I mean, does it say something? And does it say something beyond the collector?
I was going to say
or serve a purpose. Well, I'm just saying CIG's pretty good for whatever they put in the game having a purpose.
Yeah, if you look at the lore of Asperia, you know, they're all about doing these replications, and I think the main thing is it's something that's sold to rich people, right? So it's a bragging thing. If you own a glaive, an Asperia glaive, you know, then you too can be like Silas from Consolidated Outland, who has that big ship museum, right? It's the status symbol, different type of one, an exotic one. Like Griff, you have a whole alien hangar.
Hey, don't make this personal.
Okay, no, but I'm just saying, like, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that probably want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I get it from a collector standpoint, right? But I'm trying to wonder, is there something more to it? Okay, if you're flying around in a glaive, okay, now you're going where I'm going. See, because I'm saying if you're flying around in a glaive in Star Citizen, I'm talking about in the PU, the Persistent Universe. Does that, to players, what does it say to them? Is it just moving target? Some rich dude owns a glaive, or does it trigger something in relation to Quanta? Or is it that if you're going to go in and do some type of espionage, you can sneak into Vanduul space with one? I'm trying to figure out, is there something bigger than just the fact that, as someone put in chat, CIG knows they can sell some money and make some ships? I'm wondering if there's more to it than that.
But both of you, yeah. Go ahead.
It could be used, maybe used for infiltration into Vanduul space, because if you have their IFF or whatever friendly signal, maybe they can scout Vanduul space. But one thing I will say is that you have to be careful when the game launches where you fly one, because if a NPC sees you, they may try to shoot you down, kill on sight. So right now in the PU, you can find them around, but I think you might want to be more careful. Definitely be more careful when the game launches.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Fastcart, is it using it to infiltrate Vanduul space, or maybe even if you find a certain Vanduul that deal with the Banu, maybe they'll deal with you because you showed up in your glaive. And on the other side of that, maybe the Quanta system will take into consideration how many glaives and scythes are in a certain area, and now here comes Xena threat because they don't like aliens. Yeah, and so now you just triggered the Xena threat to coming in and starting a battle. So I mean that could be another aspect of it.
Yeah. Mad Style says, I see them being used perhaps for stealth missions into Vanduul territory. If the replicas are similar to the originals, then they could be used for combat practice. Thrakazak, there's nothing like taking out Xeno threat of alien ships. I mean, maybe, that's why I'm asking. I was trying to push this a little bit, and could CIG be something a little bit more than just selling ships? But, we may find out, like you said, Jade, fly one in one area, no big deal. 3 or 4 of them in the area, Quanta might be responding to you, because we know that any Vanduul, we don't know who the heck they are, right? Yeah, you never know. Go ahead, FC.
To understand my enemy, I must learn how they fight.
Interesting.
Could be using them for roleplay aspects.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting.
And not all these ships that we see, not all these Vanduul ships will be something that players can operate. That's the other thing that I think should probably be made clear. Like, I don't see a player being able to operate a driller or really any of these bigger ones.
No. I think it's going to stay where we're at. Yeah, because they've pretty much held onto these ships and they've been around for a good while. But again, that's why I was wondering, because it's interesting, like you said, Jade, they're all fighters, right? They're all these single-person ships. Yeah. It's not like we got some type of Vanduul multi-crew ship or anything like that we're flying. But I am curious as to whether or not there may be some weird call for, owners who might own these ships, and there comes something where just like how in Xeno Threat, people get called in to fight for the UEE. Maybe there are people who get called in to go in and do some type of reconnaissance mission or something. If you own one of these ships, right? Give some purpose to the ship other than it being a museum piece, which I do hope that they do. I hope they do something like that. That would be very, very cool. Okay. I do want to go back to this final image that we showed you folks earlier. That's the Vanduul, and
I do like the armor on the right.
Oh yeah, we were going to talk about that. Jade, why don't you share a little bit about the whole armor versus no armor thing going on there?
Right. So if you see a Vanduul in armor, that is somebody who you can probably go up against and you definitely will want to fight them. But if you see one that's naked, run, because that's how they roll. They're not the ones that are naked are like super fierce and are like just they're crazy fighters. They're just like berserkers or something. So you don't want to mess with the naked ones. Just choose your battles.
I think they consider if you're wearing armor, you're probably more of the, I don't want to say novice, but you're the not the most skilled of the Vanduul. But if they take off armor, their attitude is like, I don't need this. A whole different group of folk, right?
It's the same with the ships between the scythe and the glaive. If you see a glaive that's like a newer pilot or novice pilot or not very good, if you see a scythe, same thing, run.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All righty. We don't have any questions in the Q&A. Nobody, I guess you guys must have answered every question for everybody, because nobody has any questions for us tonight.
We are kind of in depth.
Well, yeah, there was a lot there tonight. You guys, we gave you a whole lot in a very short amount of time, but it's actually the normal time that we'd be wrapping up on the show. We hope you guys learned something, that you enjoyed it. We enjoyed the comments that you guys put into chat. There is a lot of information there. We did put out some links earlier for the various sources that we have. Be sure to check things. I know we mentioned at the beginning of the show that a lot of this information is scattered over a 9-year period. Definitely check out Star Citizen Wiki. Check out the Star Citizen RSI website. Check out Paul Shelley's lore information. Check out the star map. There's so much stuff out there, gang. The systems that we named earlier, Caliban, Orion, Tiber, Vagabond, use the Galactopedia. Find out what you can about these things, because lore is going to be crucial in the PU universe. We've gotten really used to that whole just being in Stanton thing, but believe me, you're going to want to know these places when you start traveling around, even if you're just jumping from system to system, so that you'll have a better appreciation of the game, and also you don't get blowed up, which is another thing that could happen.
About James Johnson's lore too.
Yes,
because he put a lot into that.
Yes, James Johnson. If we could drop that link back in for everybody, the first contact video, Admiral Kusanagi, it's up at the top. That says James Johnson. Yeah, put that in there for us so that folks can grab that. And yeah, that's it. We kind of covered the grounds. Were you going to say something, FC, or was that it? Yeah. No,
that was it.
That was it. Oh, okay, cool. All right, let's talk about what we got coming up. A couple things we have coming up. One, this Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern time, we are here. Well, why am I talking about this? FC, that's you. You talk about that. I don't talk about it.
Well, yeah, Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. UTC. We have our talk show, Soul Talk on YouTube, Soul Citizen, where we talk about what's going on that week in the Star Citizen community. Mostly we talk about the ISC or the SCL and everything else that's going on that week. So check us out.
Yeah, cool. And I'll talk about what goes on Saturday. Next Saturday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, we'll be doing Soul Voices, our one-on-one conversation with you folks from the community. You guys can come and talk to us about stuff that's on Spectrum and Reddit and in the gaming industry. And we just have a really cool one-on-one time with you guys on that. And Jade, can you talk about next week?
Yes. So next week, we're doing a show on the 3.17 update.
We caught her off guard, y'all. We caught her off guard.
No. I was just thinking, because I was like, wait, that was good. I thought that was originally going to be this week.
Only if it came out, but you know what happened? I told fastcart, the reason why I didn't do it today is because everybody's talking about it and playing it today.
Okay.
So we're going to spend a week. I
wasn't sure if that was old.
No. No, we're good. So we're going to give everybody a week to digest it, so that because there's as you know, there's a lot in it, right?
Yes.
And so we're going to give everybody a week to digest it, have some fun with it. Then we're going to come back and give our thoughts on it. So that's the reason why we went on ahead and made it next week instead.
Yep. So right back here, same time next Sunday, we're discussing 3.17, and definitely, it's one of the best patches. For a number of reasons, in my opinion, but yeah, definitely.
You're ready to talk about the show right now. It seems like
I would, but yeah, that's for next week. So tune in next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, how are you guys digging? I don't know, FC, if you've had time to get into 3.17 yet. Have you downloaded it?
And looked around. I like the better performance.
Okay, yes. Listen, folks, if nothing else, you guys are going to see beautiful graphics, better performance, and of course some cool things that have been added. So we will recommend that you guys jump in, so when we talk about it next week, you guys can really throw some comments in and share with us what you guys think about the patch as well. FG1, thank you for the follow. Thank you. Jade, I know you've been in 3.17, right? More than a long time, but are you happy with the end result? Are you pretty happy with the end result of it?
It's hard for me I'm happy with the end result that people got it into their hands,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And it's just like any other patch. When there's a 0.1, they're going to fix some things that are broken now, so just bear with it. But yeah, I can't go into the Evocati stuff other than to say that we're all in this together. People who are in the PTU, the Evocati, even in the PU, still a test environment. So use the issue council for anything that you see that isn't up there, and add to it. That's what'll make the patch better.
Absolutely.
And 317, that trailer though.
Yes. Check out the trailer, gang.
Yeah,
check out that trailer. They did a great job.
Make sure you drop that trailer next week, because that was fire.
Absolutely. Hey, if you're supporting the game and you see some out there you want to support, you guys know the whole A's back out. All the Mist stuff is out there for sale. Hey, go for it. But don't forget, Invictus is coming up in a couple weeks. So you may want to hold on to those wallets and see what's going on. All right. But, if you see something out there that you like.
Especially if you got the tax refund in America.
Your tax refunds, right? Okay. All right. Well, listen, once again, thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. We are going to go over and visit TV Liquid, because TV Liquid always sends us love. You all send some love to TV Liquid. Tell them you came from Soul Citizens. Enjoy yourselves over there. If you like what you see, follow them. And as always, we tell you guys, hopefully we'll see you this week. And until then, peace, love, and soul. Take care of yourselves.
And happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
Yes.
That was a long one.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
Yeah, I know.